Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, ni hao, sla, annyeonghaseyo, karibu. What else did I forget? Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for all of your positive comments on last week's video. Shout out to Noor, who pointed out the big secret in chapters 9 to 11. Thank you for stopping by, Yum Yum. I agree, a lot of mysteries. Hello to Mohammed Abdulazim, hello, thank you for checking in. Faith Maria also coming in from 2 years ago and 3 years ago now. In 2A back in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Thank you for stopping in. And of course, I saw Nada, who came back today and said, Miss Macklin, when are you going to post another video? And the answer is now. So when we left off, there was a lot. I can't put my glasses on, guys. I'm having troubles. There was just a lot going on with Ben and his granny. He discovered her life of crime, and he's asking questions, and she's telling him she's been doing this stuff since she was a little girl, but she didn't quite finish her tale because he had to go home and eat some sausagey, cheesy beans. I don't know, cheesy beans. And he also accidentally told his parents he wants to become a ballroom dancer because they caught him sweaty. His mom caught him sweaty, pedaling back from Granny's house. So guys, let's continue on with chapter 12, and let's see what shenanigans our friend gets up to this week. Chapter 12 is entitled The Love Bomb. Ben had spent the whole of Sunday morning being measured up by Mum for his dance outfit. She had stayed up through the night sketching possible designs. Under duress, he was forced to choose one and pointed a limp finger at the one that he thought was the least hideous. Mum's hand-drawn options ranged all the way from the embarrassing to the humiliating. There was the woodland, the fruit cocktail. That's the woodland. That's the fruit cocktail. Thunder and lightning, an accident and emergency. There's thunder and lightning. There's accident and emergency. Ice in a slice, the hedgerow and badger. Ice in a slice, the hedgerow and badger. The Quality Street, eggs and bacon. The Quality Street, eggs and bacon. Confetti and the underwater world. Confetti, the underwater world. Burning love and cheese and pickle. Burning love, cheese and pickle. The solar system and piano man. The solar system, piano man. But the one that Ben thought was the least worst was the love bomb. We will have to find you a nice young girl to partner with for the competition, said Mum, excitedly as she accidentally ran one of her fake nails under the sewing machine and it exploded. Ben hadn't thought about dance partners. Not only was he going to have to dance, he was going to have to dance with a girl. And not just any girl, but a revoltingly precocious, sparkly, fake-tanned, leotard-wearing, over-made-up one. Ben was still at the age when he thought girls were as appealing as frog spawn. Oh, I'm just going to dance on my own, he spluttered. A solo piece, exclaimed Mum. How original. In fact, I can't stand here talking all day. I'd better go and practice, said Ben as he disappeared upstairs to his room. He shut the door, turned on the radio, and then climbed out of the window and raced over to Granny's bungalow on his bike. So you were running off into the woods when Lord Davenport started shooting at you, Ben was eagerly prompting his Granny. But for the moment, her mind looked blank. Was I, said Granny, looking increasingly befuddled. That's where the story ended last night. You said you had snatched the ring from the Davenport's bedroom and were running across the lawn when you heard shots. Pap, pap. Oh, yes, muttered Granny, her face suddenly illuminated. Ben smiled broadly. He suddenly remembered how he had used to love his Granny telling stories when he was younger, transporting him to a magical world, a world where you paint pictures in your mind that are more thrilling than all the movies or TV shows or video games in the universe. Only a couple of weeks ago, he had pretended to be asleep to stop her telling him a bedtime story. Clearly, he'd forgotten how thrilling stories could be. I was running and running, continued Granny breathlessly, as if she were actually running, and I heard a shot ring out. Then another. I knew from the sound that it was definitely a shotgun rather than a rifle. What's the difference? Asked Ben. Well, a rifle shoots one bullet and is more accurate, but a shotgun sprays hundreds of little deadly balls of lead. Any idiot can hit you if they fire a shotgun in your direction. And did he? Said Ben. His smile had faded now. He was genuinely worried. Yes, but luckily I was far away by then, so I was only grazed. I could hear the dogs barking too. They were hunting me, and I was only a small girl. If they had caught me, the hounds would have ripped me to shreds. Ben gasped in horror. So how did you get away? He asked. I took a chance. I couldn't outrun the dogs through the forest. The fastest runner in the world couldn't, but I knew the woods really well. I used to play in them for hours with my brothers and sisters. I knew if I could just get across the stream, then the dogs would lose the scent. How come? Dogs can't follow a scent across water, and there was a great oak tree just on the other side of the stream. If I climbed that tree, I might be safe. Ben couldn't imagine his granny climbing stairs, let alone a tree. She had lived in her bungalow ever since he could remember. More shots rang out through the darkness as I ran toward the stream, continued the old lady, and I stumbled into the gloom of the forest. I tripped on a tree root and fell face first into the mud. Scrambling to my feet, I turned round to see an army of men on horseback, led by Lord Davenport. They were carrying flaming torches and holding shotguns. The whole forest was lit up with fire from the torches. I jumped into the stream. It was around this time of year in the depth of winter, and the water was icy. The cold shocked me, and I could hardly breathe. I clapped my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. I could hear the dogs getting nearer and nearer, barking and barking. There must have been dozens of them. I looked behind me, and I could see their sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight. So I waded across the stream and started climbing the tree. My hands were muddy, and my legs and feet were wet, and I kept slipping down the trunk. I frantically rubbed my hands on my nightshirt and began to climb again. I scrambled to the very top of the tree and stayed as still as I could. I heard the dogs and the army of Davenport's men follow the stream down to a different part of the forest. The dogs' ferocious barks became distant, and after a while the torches were just specks in the distance. I was safe. I shivered up that tree for hours. I waited until dawn, slid down the tree, and made our way back into our cottage. I crept into bed and lay there for a few moments before the sun rose. Ben could picture everything she described perfectly in his mind. Granny had him utterly spellbound. Did they come looking for you? He asked. Well, no one got a good enough look at me, so Davenport had his men search everywhere in the village. Every cottage was turned upside down looking for the ring. Didn't you say anything? I wanted to. I felt so guilty, but I knew if I owned up, I would be in deep trouble. Lord Davenport would have me publicly flogged in the village square. So what did you do? I swallowed it. Ben couldn't believe his ears. The ring, Granny? You swallowed the ring? I thought it was the best way to hide it, in my stomach. A few days later, it came out when I went to the toilet. That must have been painful, said Ben, his bum wincing at the thought. Passing a big diamond ring out of his bottom didn't sound in any way enjoyable. It was painful. Excruciating, in fact, Granny grimaced. The good thing was that our cottage had been searched already from top to bottom. Not my bottom, the bottom of the cottage, I mean. Ben chuckled. And Davenport's men had moved on to searching the next village. So one night I went into the woods and hid the ring. I placed it where no one would ever look, under a rock in the stream. Clever, said Ben. But that ring was only the first of many, Ben. Stealing it had been the biggest thrill of my life, and as I lay in bed each night, all I dreamed about was stealing more and more diamonds. That ring was just the beginning, continued Granny in a low whisper, staring deep into Ben's innocent young eyes, of a lifetime of crime. Chapter 13. A lifetime of crime. Hours passed in what seemed like minutes as Granny told her grandson how she had stolen every one of the dazzling items spread out on the living room floor. The huge tiara had belonged to the wife of the President of the United States of America, the First Lady. Granny told Ben how over 50 years earlier she had sailed all the way to America on a cruise liner to steal it from the White House in Washington, and that while sailing back home she had robbed every rich lady on the ship of her jewels. how she was caught red-handed by the captain of the ship and escaped by diving overboard and swimming the last few miles of the Atlantic Ocean, back to England with all of the jewelry hidden in her knickers. Granny told Ben that the sparkling emerald earrings that had been in her little bungalow for decades were worth more than £1 million each. They had once belonged to the wife of an enormously wealthy Indian Maharaja, a Maharani. The old lady recounted how she had enlisted the help of a herd of elephants to steal them. She had coaxed the elephants to stand on the top of each other to form a giant ladder so she could scale the wall of the fort in India where the earrings were kept in the royal bedchamber. The most amazing tale of all was of how she stole the enormous deep blue diamond and sapphire brooch that sat sparkling on her worn living room carpet. She told Ben that it once belonged to the last empress of Russia, who ruled with her husband the Tsar before the Communist Revolution of 1917. It had for many years been under bulletproof glass at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, guarded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year by a platoon of fearsome Russian soldiers. This theft had required the most elaborate plan of all. Granny had hidden in an ancient suit of armor in the museum, which dated back hundreds of years to the time of Catherine the Great. Each time the soldiers looked the other way, she would edge forward in the metal suit a few millimeters until she got close enough to the brooch. It took her a week. What, like Granny's footsteps? Asked Ben. Exactly, young man, she replied. When I smashed the glass with the silver axe I was holding and grabbed the brooch. How did you escape, Granny? That's a good question. Now, how did I escape? Granny looked flummoxed. Sorry, it's my age, boy. I forget things. Ben smiled supportively. That's okay, Granny. Soon the old lady's memory seemed to come back into focus. Oh, yes, I remember, she continued. I ran outside into the courtyard of the museum, leapt into the barrel of a huge cannon, and then fired myself to safety. Ben pictured this for a moment. His Granny in deepest, darkest Russia, flying through the air in an ancient suit of armor. It was hard to believe, but how else could this little old lady come to have such an astonishing collection of priceless gems? Ben loved Granny's daring tales. At home, Ben had never had stories read or told to him. His parents always just switched on the television and slumped down on the sofa when they got home from work. Hearing the old lady talk was so exciting, Ben wished he could move in with her. He could listen to Granny all day. There can't be a jewel in the world you haven't stolen, said Ben. Oh, yes, there is, young man. Hang on. What's that? What's what? Said Ben. Granny was pointing behind Ben's head, an expression of horror on her face. It's... What? Said Ben, not daring to turn around and see what she was pointing at. A shiver ran down his spine. Whatever you do, said Granny, don't turn round. Chapter 14, Nosy Neighbor. Ben couldn't help himself, and his eyes darted towards the window. For a brief moment, he saw a dark figure wearing a strange hat peer through the dirty glass, and then quickly disappear out of view. There was a man peering in that window, said Ben breathlessly. I know, said Granny. I told you not to look. Shall I go out and see who it was, said Ben, trying to hide the fact that he was more than a little frightened. Really, he wanted Granny to go out and see who it was. I bet it was my nosy neighbor, Mr. Parker. He lives at number 7. He always wears a pork pie hat, and he keeps spying on me. Why? Asked Ben. Granny shrugged. I don't know. I imagine he has a rather cold heart or something. Head. What? Said Ben. Oh, no, not his hat. I mean, why does he keep spying on you? He's a retired major, and now he runs the Neighborhood Watch scheme in Grey Close. What's Neighborhood Watch? Asked Ben. It's a group of local people who keep an eye out for burglars, but Mr. Parker just uses it as an excuse to spy on everyone, the nosy old git. I have to come back from the supermarket with my bag of cabbages and see he's hiding behind his net curtains, spying on me with a pair of binoculars. Excuse me. Is he suspicious about you? Said Ben, more than a little panicked. He didn't want to be thrown in jail for aiding and abetting a criminal. He didn't really know what abetting meant, actually, but he knew it was a crime, and he knew he was too young for prison. He is suspicious about everyone. We have to keep an eye out for him, young lad. The man is a menace. Ben went over to the window and peered out. He couldn't see anyone. Bring! Ben's heart missed a beat. It was only the doorbell, but if they let Mr. Parker inside, he would see all the evidence the police would need to send Ben and his Granny straight to prison. Don't answer it, said Ben, as he ran to the middle of the room and started stuffing all the jewels back in the tin as quickly as he could. What do you mean, don't answer it? He knows I'm home. He just saw us through the window. You answer the door and I will hide the jewels. Me? Yes, you. Hurry. Bring! The ring was more insistent. Mr. Parker had left his finger on the buzzer for even longer. Ben took a deep breath and walked calmly through the hall to the front door. He opened it. Outside stood a man in a very silly hat. Don't believe me? This is how silly his hat was. Yes, said Ben in a squeaky high voice. Can I help you? Mr. Parker put his foot inside the bungalow so the front door couldn't be closed on him. Who are you? He barked nasally. He had a very big nose, which made him seem even nosier than he was, and he already seemed extremely nosy. Because he had a big nose, he also had a very nasal voice, which made everything he said, however serious, seem a bit absurd. But his eyes shone red like a demon. I am Granny's friend, sputtered Ben. Why did I say that? He thought. In truth, he was in a terrible panic, and his tongue was running away from him. Friend, snarled Mr. Parker, pushing open the front door. He was stronger than Ben, and he soon forced his way inside. I mean grandson, Mr. Parker, sir, said Ben, retreating back towards the living room. Why are you lying to me? He said, taking several paces forward as Ben took several paces back. It was as if they were dancing the tango. I'm not lying, cried Ben. They reached the living room door. You can't go in there, yelled Ben, thinking of the jewels still scattered on the carpet. Why not? Because Granny is doing her naked yoga. Ben needed a dramatic excuse to stop Mr. Parker barging through the door and seeing the jewels. He was pretty sure he had hit the jackpot as Mr. Parker paused and furrowed his brow. Naked yoga? A likely story. I need to talk to your grandmother right away. Now get out of my way, you nasty little worm of a boy, he said as he shoved the boy aside and opened the living room door. Granny must have heard Ben through the door, because when Mr. Parker burst into the room, she was standing there in her bra and knickers in a tree pose. Mr. Parker, do you mind? Said Granny in mock horror, as he had seen her in a state of undress. Mr. Parker's eyes spun around the room. He didn't know where to look, so he fixed his glare on the now bare carpet. Excuse me, madam, but I need to ask you, where are those jewels I saw a moment ago? Ben spied the silver Jubilee biscuit tin poking out from behind the sofa. Surreptitiously, he edged it out of view with his foot. What jewels, Mr. Parker? Have you been spying on me again? Demanded Granny, still in her underwear. Well, he spluttered. I had a good reason. I was suspicious when I saw a young gentleman enter your property. I thought he might be a burglar. I let him in through the front door. He might have been a very charming burglar. He might have weaseled his way into your confidence. He's my grandson. He stays every Friday night. Ah, said Mr. Parker triumphantly, but it's not Friday night, so you can see why my suspicions were raised. And as the head of Grey Close's neighborhood watch, I must report everything suspicious I see to the police. I've got a good mind to report you to the police, Mr. Parker, said Ben. Granny looked at him curiously. Whatever for? Said the man. His eyes narrowed. They were now so red, it was like there was fire in his brain. For spying on old ladies in their underwear, said Ben triumphantly. Granny winked at Ben. She was fully clothed when I looked through the window, protested Mr. Parker. That's what they all say, said Granny. Now get out of my house before you are arrested for being a peeping Tom. You've not heard the last of me. Good day, said Mr. Parker. With that, he spun on his heels and left the room. Granny and Ben heard the front door slam behind him, and they ran over to the window and watched him scuttle back into his bungalow. I think we frightened him off, said Ben. But he'll be back, said Granny. We have to be very careful. Yes, said Ben, more than a little alarmed. We'd better hide this tin somewhere else. Granny thought for a moment. Yes, I'll put it under the floorboards. Okay, said Ben, but first, yes, Ben, you might want to get dressed. Okay, Granny in her underwear, a nosy neighbor. Nosy means somebody that doesn't stay in their own business. They don't mind their own business. They want to know what everybody around them is doing, and they're worried about other people's lives. So being nosy is not a good thing. So it seems Granny has had a life of crime that extended all the way from England, where they lived, to America, robbing famous people in India. The very President of the United States is alive. She's what we call prolific. She is probably world renowned for being a burglar. So anyway, we're doing pretty well here. We've got almost halfway through the story. I'm curious to see what happens next, but you'll have to wait until I get some more free time to read, inshallah. All right, guys, I will catch you later, and I look forward to seeing your comments. Make sure you like this video and leave a comment below. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Stay safe and listen to your parents. Bye.